Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the July edition of the PhET Africa Share and Discuss webinar series. We will just allow for a few more seconds, get everyone to connect and settle, and we will be right on our way. While we wait for everyone to join us, it has become our ritual. We want to know where you're joining from. So please feel free to write in the chat your name, the subject or school, the subject you teach or the institution you're affiliated with, and then the country you're joining us from. Please write in the chat your name, the institution or subject that you're affiliated with or the subject you teach, and then the country you're joining us from. Today's edition promises to be another exciting conversation about shifting the teaching and learning of STEM across Africa, leveraging effective methods. And today we have an amazing person who is going to shed light on an interesting topic, and we can't wait to get started. Thank you for joining us, Utasi from Zambia. We look forward to everyone writing in the chat. We will get right on our way now. And again, my name is Shola Olatejo. Super excited to have you join us today. This is the July edition of the Africa Share and Discuss webinar series, and it's brought to you by the PhET Interactive Simulation Project at the University of Colorado Boulder in partnership with the MasterCard Foundation. Thank you for joining again. I'm not alone. I have my colleagues who are also joining, and at some point during the call, you'll have a chance to meet them if you're joining us for the first time. Again, we love to hear where you're connecting from. Feel free to write in the chat, and we would love to know. This session is recorded, and we will be able to make it available for our regular participants who might, for whatever reason, are unable to join today. And of course, you're also able to catch it up or share widely with friends and colleagues who you think would benefit from the conversations that happen. We're going to introduce our guest in a bit, but before then, just some housekeeping rule. If you're joining us for the first time, this webinar is brought to you again by the PhET Interactive Simulation Project. We meet the project at the University of Colorado creates free interactive math and science simulations, which are based on extensive education research and engage students through an intuitive game-like environment where students learn through exploration and discovery. PhET was founded in 2002 by the Nobel laureate. So the project is about 20 years old now. At PhET, our goal is to improve the global learning of math and science. And in line with that goal, the webinar series is one way where we translate research into practice by bringing seasoned practitioners and researchers to share the insight that they've gathered in the field to help improve the practice of teaching and learning across the continent. We meet every third Wednesday of the month. And of course, the conversation has grown stronger and stronger over time. Like I mentioned, the session is recorded. That means you also have a chance to catch up with previous recordings. So I invite you to visit the YouTube page. And if you look at the top right corner, you can search, you will find the playlist where you will see this recording as well as all past recordings for this particular webinar series. For housekeeping rules, while the conversation or the presentation is on, you will not be able, for the first 20-25 minutes, you will be unable to write questions. We've saved time to ask questions directly. We've saved time for questions towards the end of the conversation. So we invite and encourage, use the question and answer feature here on Zoom. Use the writing the question and answer feature, and once the speaker has completed his presentation, would open the floor for question and answers, where you would have the opportunity to ask your questions directly, or we would just read directly from what you've written within the group. But nothing to worry about. There's sufficient time to address everyone's question. And if you're joining us from Facebook, please write in the chat section, on the comment section there on Facebook as well, and a member of the team looking out for your questions, and we'll relay that to our speaker And we invite you, this conversation is just for about an hour, and it's almost never enough. The wider community on the continent by joining the Facebook group for PhET in Africa. And you will find that by searching for PhET Educator Africa there on Facebook. Today, we have the pleasure of having with us Professor Olayinka, Akinola Samson Olayinka, who is a prolific academic, researcher, and practicing computational and material physicist. He holds a doctorate in theoretical maths, mathematical physics, and a master's in engineering maths, respectively, from the University of Benin in Nigeria. He's currently the professor and the dean of the computational and applied physics at the University, at the Edo State University, Uzairue in Nigeria. We are super honored to have you join us today, Professor. Thank you for accepting that joining this conversation. We'll hand it over to you now, and you can take it away.
Thank you very much for having me. Can I share my screen now?
So I'll just stop sharing. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on which part of the globe you are at the moment. Thanks to Shola for the wonderful introduction. And I would like to also recognize Zach Mbasu, the African ambassador for PhET. It's my pleasure to be here this evening to speak to us on the topic, active learning strategies for teaching in all-class context. How do we facilitate a PhET-based lesson? I want to appreciate every one of us who have joined from different parts of the world. And I can promise us that today's PhET Africa Share and Discuss will be a very remarkable experience. Once again, my name is Professor Akinola. I am a professor of computational and applied physics at Edo State University of Uzairue. I'm currently the dean of the faculty by God's grace. I'm also a fellow of the PhET Interactive Simulation at the University of Colorado Boulder. And I'm happy to be sharing with us this evening on this exciting topic. So very quickly, let's roll through what we have for today. I will be looking at this outline in the course of the discussion this evening. And I believe that going through, every one of us, we have one or two things to learn, even as we go through this process of becoming a better professional teachers and a better person imparting our world. Now, what is the motivation for teaching? Or what are our motivations as teachers? Someone will say, yes, I need money. I want to earn money. I want to make money. But unequivocally, I can say, if money is your target, I don't think teaching profession is the best way to go, especially in this part of the world. The teachers are not properly remunerated. However, what should be our motivations as teachers? What should be our driving force as teachers? How do we have passion as teachers despite the fact we don't have so much reward? Now, number one, we should see ourselves as people impacting lives. As teacher, your role is that you are impacting lives. Two, we are nurturing growth. As teachers, we are nurturing growth. Three, we are fostering a love for learning. We are fostering love for learning. Four, we are empowering individuals. As teachers, we are people who are empowering individuals to be better in whatever they're doing. Then we are also creating positive change. And lastly, we are sharing our expertise with others. In the world, we have the best of engineers, the best of doctors, and the best of any profession you can think of. It starts with a teacher. And so our motivation as teacher should go far, far beyond just money or any material reward, but rather as agents of change, as agent of growth in the society. And if we can see ourselves as that, it will help us a long way to be able to do whatever we need to do to be the best we can be as far as teaching profession is concerned. Now, let's take a quick look at the overview of active learning. Active learning is an instructional approach that involves students in the process of learning through various activities. Now, when we talk about active learning, as the name is, it is not passive, rather, it is active. And the students are involved in the learning process. It's a complete deviation from the traditional approach of teaching, which can be referred to as passive way of learning. The passive way of learning, we can look at it as a situation whereby you have a stage on stage who is dishing out instruction without necessarily minding what the feedback is from the learners. Such a stage comes and speaks for about an hour and he walks away as a sage that he is. That has been proven with several scientific evidence not to be an effective way of imparting knowledge. Hence, active learning becomes very important and very relevant as far as learning is concerned in this 21st century. And in the case of passive learning, the students simply receive the information and they are not just actively involved. In the case of active learning, we have activities like discussions, we have problem-solving activities, we have case studies, we have hands-on experience where students can actually be actively involved in whatever is being done as far as learning is concerned. Though active learning is still evolving, there are still a lot of research going on in that field. However, there are increased evidence that it has been able to improve the student performance by several authors. I just cited one day. It has been able to improve the student's performance as far as learning is concerned. And so if we talk about which way to go, we should go in the way of active learning. Active learning is focused on the action students take in order to achieve the desired learning objectives. And so it's far, far beyond just a passive way of learning. This is a typical picture of my active learning teaching use effect simulation in my university, where I have the undergraduate year one student learning physics, and I have a projected effect simulation on the screen, as you can see up here. And then you can see some of the students having their laptop and their mobile devices, trying to follow up in a whole class environment. Now, active learning approaches demand a higher degree of responsibility on the learner. However, it does not mean that the teacher or the instructor has no role to play. Rather, the role of the teacher, the role of the instructor is as important as the role of the student. However, in the case of active learning, the students have a higher responsibility as far as learning process is concerned. The students, the learners, they have a role to play as far as learning is concerned. Okay, let's look at this spectrum of active learning from the PhET interactive simulation materials, okay? On the extreme side, on the extreme left here, I have more teacher control, where lecture takes place. And on the right side here, I also have more student control, where you have activities and the lab. And here I have the interactive lecture demonstration, whole class inquiry, and concept questions as part of the PhET pedagogies that are used to bridge the gap between these two extremes. What do I mean by this? More teacher control, more student control. There has to be a synergy, a point whereby the active learning can take place at a very convenient place along this scale. And in order to be able to do that, we have interactive lecture demonstrations in between that can help both the teacher control and the student control to be synchronized up to the point where learning can be achieved. We have the whole class inquiry, the teacher control, the student control can also be synchronized up to a level where we can have active learning achieve the same thing with concept question. Okay, what are the characteristics of active learning? Number one, understand and address the student prior knowledge. Now, the way knowledge is built is such a way, it's like cascading it. So knowledge is built in a pyramidal way. there is a basis for which you will start, and you keep building on that knowledge. If you look at it from primary school, or maybe from KG or pre-KG and the rest of it that we have these days, maybe the first thing that you will start with is how a puppy can begin to open his mouth and say, and things like that. That is the beginning. And from there, that puppy will be able to say A, B, 1, 2, 3. And upon that knowledge, we keep building up to maybe secondary school level, up to first degree and even postgraduate. Is such a pyramid of building knowledge on prior knowledge, okay? And two, to connect the content of a lesson to daily experiences of students and apply it in different contexts. Active learning try to look at the applications of knowledge. Number 3 supports collaboration. Number 4, it creates a safe environment for your students, a safe environment where students are confident, they are encouraged, they are motivated to learn. It also provides appropriate scaffolding. That is, active learning has been confused with giving little or no instruction, which can lead to frustration and confusion. Now, I'd like to emphasize here that active learning does not mean the role of the teacher is completely out of it. Even though the student or the learner plays a significant role in the learning process, that doesn't rule out the responsibility and the role of the teacher or the instructor, as the case may be. Number 5, it makes assessment a part of the learning process. So you assess the student to weigh the performance and then keep learning and building on the knowledge. Establish certain practices and expectation as a response to specific behavior. Now, how do we engage the 21st century students? How do we engage the 21st century student? In 2009, Selling published a paper, and they refer to every child born after 1980 as digital natives. And those that were born before 1980, they refer to them as digital migrants. What point was he trying to say? Here is this, that if you were born after 1980, you were born into digital world. Every child born after 80 will probably maybe see a computer or have access to phone and things like that within a very short period of time. But if you talk about digital migrants, in which I believe some of us might be, such migrate into technology as technology is evolving. Now, how do we then teach these digital natives without using technology? Is it possible? The answer is no. And that is where PhET interactive simulation became a very handy tool to be able to teach students in this 21st century and make learning a very remarkable experience for them, not the dogmatic way of teaching or learning that some of us went through as students. What is PhET? PhET is an acronym for Physics Education Technology, but over the years it has encompasses every aspect of STEM and is still evolving to include other parts of simulations. It was founded in 2002 by Carl Wiener after he won the Nobel Laureate in 2001. The proceeds of his grant was used to start the PhET interactive simulation. And over the years, this has grown and is still growing, and the impact is still very much. Let me skip this. Now, in the design of PhET simulations, the following principles were engaged. It encourages scientific inquiry. It provides interactivity. It makes the feasible invisible. That is, it paints what you can ordinarily see or what you cannot even ordinarily achieve in the lab. It makes it possible for you to achieve that. It also shows visual mental modes. It has a way of multiple representation of objects, motion, graphs, and the rest of it. It uses real-world connections, gives users implicit guidance, and it gives flexibility to simulation stage. What are the goals of PhET interactive simulation? Is to make learning STEM to be more engaging, relevant, accessible, effective, and personalized. So every student has a personalized learning experience, no longer generic. So every student can learn at their pace. And the learning objective can be achieved in every single student. PhET's interactive simulation make learning STEM more like doing STEM. Now, my own personal experience with STEM, I would like to share this very quickly. Sometimes in 2009 and 2010, I was faced with teaching physics practical to undergraduate students in a university where we had inadequate laboratory apparatus, and I want to deliver. Thanks to PhET interactive simulation, I stumbled on it, and I made use of it to achieve physics practical objectives, and the rest is story. I know there are publications, scientific publications that says yes, PhET interactive simulation is not meant to replace physical hands-on practical. However, in a situation where we don't have adequate apparatus to carry out experiments or practicals, PhET simulation became very handy and relevant, and that is what I was able to use within those years. And using PhET to teach my students, based on student assessment in the year 2016, I received an award as the best lecturer in that university, thanks to PhET interactive simulation. Now, the picture we're seeing here on this screen was a picture of intro to PhET simulation I had in my university, where all academics, professors, senior lecturers, professors, including my vice chancellor, were present. So this particular program took place some time ago, and I had an audience, including professors of law. I had an audience, including professor of political science and the rest of them in this audience. Then the question I asked myself or asked them is, someone will ask this question: what is my business with PhETs? What is my business with science, like a professor of law? Or what is my business with mathematics? Okay. And I try to provide answer to that, building on the word of Kofi Annan. Knowledge is power, information is liberating, education is premise of progress in every society and every family. Now, PhETs may not necessarily be relevant to an individual, but definitely it will be relevant to maybe a child of a professor of law, or to a community where that professor operates, and so they can contribute positively to the development of PhETs. We may also influence policy that can improve quality of education if we see PhET as a very worthwhile tool. And we can also work as PhET translator, even to have PhET sim in our local languages and dialects. I believe this is what concerns everybody, and everybody can fit into one or two areas of this PhET activity. Now, facilitating a PhET-based active learning in a whole class context. Let me quickly give some tips on how to manage the use of PhET simulation in a whole class context. Whole class context is a situation whereby you have, like the picture I showed earlier, where you have so many number of students to teach at the same time. How do you make use of PhET interactive simulation? Number one, introduce and familiarize the students with the simulations. That's it. That's going to take time to introduce PhET sim to the student, provide an overview of its purpose, features, and how to navigate through it. Ensure that students understand the basic functionality and controls. Number two, I said to align the simulation with the learning goals. Consider your specific learning objective and identify how the PhET simulation can support them. Choose simulations that directly relate to the concepts or topics you are teaching. Highlight the connection between the simulation and the learning goal to enhance the student engagement. Number three, design simulated scenario to target learning goals. That is, create specific scenario within the simulation that align with your desired learning outcome. Encourage students to manipulate variables and observe effects to deepen their understanding. Number four, to foster interactivity and collaboration. So students should be encouraged to interact. Students should be encouraged to actively participate by incorporating an interactive element into the sim based on activities. So as I wind down, let's look at a PhET-based active learning in a whole class environment. I'll be looking at the whole class strategies, which include the whole class inquiry. We have the interactive lecture demonstration. Then we have the concept questions. whole class inquiry, what's it all about? This one leverages on the exploratory nature of the simulation in the context of a whole class discussion. Introduce a topic and help students to broadly understand the natural or mathematical system. And during a whole class inquiry, the teacher is responsible for guiding the conversation between the students and the whole class. These are the steps.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, we might have lost Professor briefly. While we wait for him to return, it was just about speaking to
questions that you can ask students. Okay. And number 4, be sure to include the different types of questions.
Do you hear me? Sorry, we lost you for some seconds. So I think we didn't hear you. We didn't hear some of the things you said. Do you mind just starting on this page again? When you started talking about whole class inquiry, not whole class strategies now. Might be a slide now.
Okay, that's all right. I can start again from here. So, like I said earlier, these are steps to design a whole class inquiry activity. The first thing to do is to choose a topic and a suitable PhET simulations. Number 2 is to brainstorm on the learning goals and then how that could be achieved with the simulation. Number 3 is to, for each of the goal that you have come up with in the second stage or the second step, there's need to come up with a series of questions that you could ask your student to generate discussion. And number 4, be sure to include the different types of questions in your whole class inquiry activities. And then lastly, order the question in a logical way according to the development of the topic in question. And the second one is the interactive lecture demonstration. Now, in the case of interactive lecture demonstration, it's a strategy that is especially useful when we have larger classes. And the teacher also wants a more structured environment. So in the interactive lecture demonstration, the teacher prepares a guided document that we call a prediction sheet, in which students write down their prediction, explanations, and observations of the demonstration that will be presented in the class. This approach differs from the whole class inquiry by most systematically having students practice writing as they defend their prediction or hypothesis. The student can also sketch diagrams to represent their mental modes and compare various scenarios among other skills. These are also steps to draft a prediction sheet for interactive lecture demonstration. The first one is to also, as we have said earlier, you choose a topic and a suitable PhET simulation, then establish learning goal that you could cover with the selected STEAM. Plan at least 3 demonstrations and design their respective prediction questions. And lastly, order the question logically according to the flow and development of the topic. Now, number 3 is the concept question. This is another active learning strategy that leverages on the dynamism and multi-level representation nature of the simulation. This one focuses specifically on questions and potential answers to support the discussion among peers. Teacher can use this strategy to focus student thinking on a specific element of a natural or mathematical system. Concept questions are challenging multiple choice questions that can be integrated with the use of either polling tools, or you can even use digital apps like Google Form and the rest of it. What are the tips that we need to follow when we are creating concept question? Number 1, create at least 3 questions related to the topic and the learning goal. Number 2, remember to include images of the same either in the question or in the answer choices. And number 3, place each question on a separate slide and place answer in the note section. Number 4, it is not necessary to start from the scratch. Please take note of this, because on the PhET interactive simulation website, we can access activity browser and get access to some of the multiple questions that have been uploaded here, which can serve as a way to start whatever we want to do as far as creating concept question is concerned. I have this here, an example of an interactive concept question, making use of a resistance in a wire simulation. The question is, what happens to the resistance of the wire when the length of the wire is increased? Okay, so students can give their various answers and reasons, and this can generate discussion. And then the actual practice can then be taking place by moving the slide. And then after moving the slide, it will be possible to see what the situation is. I'll move the slide. And then we can see increasing the length, what happened to the resistance. So that can be done here. Oh, sorry. Okay, so I give a quick case study. This was an implementation of an active learning I did this semester that is just rounding up with my students, undergraduate students. I have 538 students who participated in this activity, resistance in a wire. What was done here is to put all these strategies into a Google form that was made accessible to made available to the students, and the students responded to this. I believe we can also incorporate this and use it whenever we have course of implementing active learning, especially in the whole class activity. In conclusion, whole class inquiry, interactive demonstration, and concept questions are not mutually exclusive. That is, they are meant to be combined, where we take advantages and benefit of each strategy and then build them into our lessons. Thank you. These are references. Thank you for listening. We can access some of the resources for PhET on this page. And these are my supporting stakeholders over the years as a career as an academic. I want to say a big thank you to everyone.
Thank you so much, Prof, for the great presentation. It was good to learn about some of the practical experiences you've had in implementing PhET in your classroom. So please, if you have questions, this is a good time to write into the chat so that we can ask, of course, Prof directly within the scope of what is said, or if there's anything that comes to mind that you think you'll be able to speak to. If you want to write directly, or excuse me, please feel free to raise your virtual hand and we'll be happy to hand you the mic so that you can unmute and then speak. So, Prof, while we're waiting for questions to come, I'm actually going to jump on the last thing you said. You said a lot of amazing things, but I'll start from the last and we can then go back to the earlier thing. I would love to learn more about your experience, basically working with the 539 students and implementing that. Of course, that's a great one, an ingenious way to explore that. But what would you say you learned from that process? What were the challenges? What are the pros and cons? And what would you advise people who are trying to perhaps adopt such flexible tool to manage large classes or tools that are ubiquitous, easily accessible and available to their learners? Just what were your learnings in implementing and using that?
Thank you, Shola. My experience was quite pleasant. The reason is because in my university, we encourage the use of technology to facilitate learning. And the consequence upon that, I look at having this population of students. How do I make each and every one of them to be actively engaged using PhET simulation? So I created a Google form where I provided a necessary link and embedded a sim for the students to work with. And as they're working, they are responding to different stages of the questions that are asked. In that particular activity, we made use of a whole class inquiry. That strategy was there. We made use of concept questions. That concept was there. So all these were built into that. It's a situation like having students working remotely from where they are. Why, as a teacher or as a facilitator, you monitor whatever is being done. And we also have a common WhatsApp platform where students also communicate their experience, even in addition to what they are doing using Google Form. So it's actually a very wonderful experience to look at several ways of making use of different tools available for us. And the beauty of that is some of the questions can actually be made to be quiz, whereby it will be automatically marked in Google form. So the teacher has less work to do. But what will be achieved at the end of the day is that your students, your learners must have been actively engaged making use of a simulation. And then they will have also done an assessment for you to be able to know their level of understanding. Thank you. No, your audio.
Sorry, yeah,
Okay.
Thank you so much. We're still waiting. I think we have a few questions now. Rita Jolayemi says, thank you for the presentation. And Richard is asking, that's Richard Boney, how do I use the simulation if my content background isn't strong enough? So how do I use the simulation if my content knowledge, content background, content knowledge isn't strong enough?
I think the simulation is meant to be used by experts in various fields. As a teacher, you have your area of expertise, and PhET simulation is only meant to help you to be able to reach out to your students better. PhET simulation is not replacing teachers. PhET simulation is not a substitute for teachers, no. So as a teacher, your background, your competency, your experience as to the subject you are teaching is very essential. And that is the concept, or that is the background you are bringing into the PhET sim, which can help you to properly deliver the content to your students. I don't know if that answered that question. So we cannot rule out your background. If you must, it's just a matter of improving on your background. If I want to teach mathematics now, and I don't know law of indices, I need to go and learn it and then master it first of all. And after mastering that content I want to deliver, then I can come to PhET simulation, and then I'll be able to deliver my content. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Prof. I see Zach just came on, maybe he has something to say, but I'm just going to echo what you said about, okay, Zach, please go ahead and share your thoughts so that we can then tie it together.
Thank you, Shola. I just wanted to add on what Prof said, in case that it is true that as teachers, we don't know all the content. And one of the things that we could do is, for example, in the case of the simulation, is you can spend more time exploring the simulation on your own, even before like going to the class. And the way the simulations are designed, they are very like user-friendly and intuitive, and you're going to learn so much in terms of the principles of STEM teaching and science and the content. And then in addition to that, you can also like use the support resources, not just on PhET, but even on the other platforms and resources. You'll find that there are like resources that are provided, guides, activities that would be helpful to you as a teacher to understand how to use the simulation, and also understand the content that is being addressed by that simulation or the resource that you're using. And then the last thing that I would do if I don't understand the content is to quickly ask for help. I can reach out to my colleagues, I can reach out to teachers in my network, or even the platform support team, because some of them are subject experts, and then they could help me in that content area that I'm struggling into, and be able to address that. So I just wanted to add those three things on what Prof has said. Thank you.
Oh, great, thank you. So PhET is also able to help correct misconceptions when you spend time exploring and just playing around the scene. As much as it helps students, it can also help. And there's a lot of research that has been carried out on how it helps, of course, pre-service teachers, and in many cases in service teachers, better understand some of the misconceptions or preconceived notions they have around some of the science concepts they will be teaching in the classroom. So that place of preparation cannot be overemphasized. You need to take time out to explore, and that can also increasingly help you improve or develop your content, pedagogical as well as technology skills around the use of this tool. We'll wait for more questions.
Shola, there is a question, I think, by Rita Jolayemi. The question was asking about, is there a website where one can find selected topics in physics, particularly the animation like the one described during the talk? So Prof, I think the question is about the resistance in a wire simulation. Would you mind just maybe demonstrating how to get to that to the participants?
Okay, that's great. Let me quickly, can you stop sharing? Let me share. Okay, so I'll share a browser. Okay, so the website is phet.colorado.edu. That's a website for the PhET interactive simulation. So I quickly open the website for us to see. Now, we have over 1.1 billion simulation delivered so far on these projects. And like I mentioned, PhET simulations are free, absolutely free. So as a user, you don't have to pay for it. It's available both offline and online. So we can actually download this and have access to it offline. So you don't have to be on the internet all the time. Let me quickly flip through and explore some of the same. This is online version now. So I go through this place. So we have simulation under physics. So I can keep scrolling here and I'll keep seeing simulation that are relevant to physics. Maybe I should just pick anyone at random. We have chemistry. If I scroll down, we can also see maths, earth sciences, biology. So these are the simulation we have related to different fields. So I can click this. Let me just make use of this. Okay, let me quickly mention this also. Here I have embed. The implication of embed is that if you have a website, you can actually embed this simulation into your website where students can have access to it. Or if you make use of a learning management system, you can also copy the embed code here. And then this embed code can be copied. And then you can embed it to your learning management system where your student doesn't have to download it. They can simply have access to it by simply accessing your learning management system. Then we also have option of downloading the simulation. If I click this sim will be downloaded for me in HTML5. So it's available offline. I can use it anytime, any day. But beyond downloading an individual simulation, I can also download a complete simulation, the offline version. We can simply search here. Okay, let me quickly demonstrate this recording place. I can open this sim in this place. And then this sim load online. Then I can go ahead and then interact with this and do whatever I want to do with this simulation. Okay, so I can pick this young man to actually drag this. And if I click go, so both of them keep pulling and we can see whatever is happening here. So I also mentioned that we can have access to this simulation offline. So we can go to this search that asks for offline. So if I type offline, the link will surely come out for me to download online assessments. Just a minute. Did I type it well? Offline, same. Okay, multiple answers.
Yeah, multiple answers.
Okay. This might take longer. Okay. Then we can go through teaching resources, right? Or simulation, or sims, translated prototype. Okay, just a minute, please.
You can choose one simulation. Just click on one of the simulations, like the
and make use of that.
Yes.
Now I'm trying to get the complete online version. Complete online, yes, complete offline version. That's the one I'm trying to. Okay, could it be because I've not logged in? Do I need to sign in first? Yeah, so I need to sign in. And I will also encourage our participants to register on the site, because there is a limited access to what we have access to if we are not registered on the site.
Yes.
Okay, so
there's a dedication at the bottom of the page.
Okay, thanks. So at the bottom of the page.
Yes, that's offline access.
Okay, thank you. So we have it here, offline access. And so this offline access, we have Windows app, we have a Mac app. So all this can be downloaded. Once this one is downloaded, it can actually be installed on the laptop, on the Windows laptop, and then no need for internet access to be able to access that, to access any of the SIM. I have it installed on my system already, which I can launch whether I'm connected to the internet or not. I will have access to all the simulations just on the go, and it's offline. So then we have the aspect that talks about the teacher resources also. Teacher resources, but there's need to log in and register to have access to that. So we have all these tips for using this, how to access activity, my activity, and the rest of it. So all this what we can explore as teachers to get more information on how to use PhET. And I believe by the time we interact with all this, definitely our experience of using the SIM will have improved greatly. I don't know if Zach or Shola has anything to add to this.
No, thanks for the exploration. I think that answers it. And if you have additional questions around the exploration, please feel free to write in the chat, and we'll be happy to spend more time showing you around and ensuring that, of course, you can navigate and find both the SIM as well as teaching resources that you would find useful to improve the teaching and learning of STEM in your classroom. We have another question from Riyad Abdul Saif. I hope I pronounced that right.
Well, okay.
Educational strategies are not exclusive, as you said, Prof. Yeah. Could you please provide us with some pedagogical features that indicate which strategies is more convenient than others? At the beginning of the presentation, you did show a spectrum and 3 strategies, but in your experience, what's your take? Which of them is more convenient along the pedagogical lines?
I think, in my concluding remark, I also mentioned that they are not mutually exclusive. The implication is this. We cannot say one is better than the other. It will be difficult to come to that conclusion. It actually depends on the learning objective you want to achieve and the scenario you have at hand. So it's difficult to give a blanket answer that a concept question is more effective than an interactive demonstration. It's actually a function of who are your audience, your students, your learners, and then what is the environment you have for them. Okay, if you have a large classes, for instance, say like I have 500 students, definitely concept question will be handy. Then whole class inquiry, yes, might work to some extent, but concept question might serve that population better. But if I have a class of 30, whole class inquiry, dividing students into a group of 2 or 3 might serve better than using concept questions. So it all depends on the scenario we have at hand. So they both have their ups and downs, they have their advantages and disadvantages. And the scenario and the learning objective and goal is what determine which of the pedagogy will be optimal for different purposes. I hope that answered the question.
Yes, thank you so much. So it's more like a toolkit, and you use the particular tool for the challenge or your constraint or the objective you have for a particular class. Zach, you'd like to add something?
Yeah, I just want a very good question from Riyadh about, which strategy do you use? And I just want to add on what Prof has said, that you might want to look at, a number of things before you choose a strategy, not just limited to the 3 strategies that Prof mentioned. And one of them is like the learning objective. So the strategy should always align with the learning objective. What sort of knowledge or skills you want students to gain. For instance, if your goal is to foster critical thinking, a strategy that encourages active learning or student discussion might be more appropriate than, for example, a lecture style format. And then the other thing to consider is maybe the student's age or prior knowledge, learning styles, and other needs. For example, younger students may often benefit from interactive and hands-on strategies, while learners who are a bit older may prefer maybe problem-based learning or things that are sort of self-directed. And then the last thing is the complexity of the content itself. So this can also determine which strategy is the best. So concepts that are like abstract and complex might require strategies that break down the problem into manageable small chunks for them to understand in steps, or use of real world examples, or leverage on things like simulations or visual aids, so that you can help them understand those complexities of the content that is being learned. So that's just what I wanted to add on what Prof has said, and Shola. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. There's so much to talk about these strategies that we've considered, and importantly, just like Mary Ann wrote in the chat, so true, context and purpose is important. This cannot be in isolation. I don't know, there are no additional questions, but of course, there are lots of questions. And if additional questions come to mind, my first recommendation is you continue the conversation in the group. So if you're not a member of the group on Facebook, this is an invitation to consider joining, so that even when you're delivering a session in class, questions around the pedagogy, the content knowledge, if there's no clarity or things around implementing in class, that's also a good place to get help and have your questions answered. I'll go back to Prof now. And I remember Prof started his conversation as well from talking around the importance of active learning in the classroom. But we know that PhET supports this classroom, but from your experience as well, what advice do you have for teachers to be more open to, as much as, okay, I'll just rephrase that. We know students have increased responsibility around this. It also means perhaps that there's additional time for preparation and extra demand on teachers to be able to implement these strategies. But what advice do you have for teachers to be increasingly able to adopt students' active learning strategies and strike a balance between more teacher control and student control in achieving the objectives in their classroom?
Thank you, Shola. I think what is important for teacher is to actually to be self-motivated to meet the 21st century demand of the students. Like I mentioned one of the slide, we are dealing with students who are born into digital age. And so if we must meet the need of those students, it is very important and instructive for us to make use of technology to teach those students. And thanks to PhET interactive simulation, is a very handy technology that can actually stimulate student interest. My experience over the year, these students have come to me, oh, we love the way you are teaching us, sir. Okay, that professor is always using simulation to teach. Those are some of the comments I have. I had to develop myself to this level of being able to use the simulation, even when there was no formal forum to learn more about the use of simulation. I found my hands on it because I want to be a better professional, a better teacher. I want to impact my students, even in the midst of scarcity of resources. I want to make use of the available to be able to reach out to them. And my advice to everyone, every teacher, both the teachers that are present here this evening and those in a network at different level of education, is for us to strive for excellence and then do our best to ensure that we teach our students using these active learning strategies. There's this saying that we should, as teacher, teach a student very well, because you don't know. One day, one of these students might be the one that will fix your heart. We've seen cases whereby the student you teach 20, 30 years ago, you just find yourself on the surgical table, and the student working on you is the one that you taught several years ago. So we need to go extra mile to be able to teach them and then give them the necessary skills and motivation, so that they can be better person in the society, they can be better individual in the society, and then they can make the world a better place. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. I think we'll take one more question before we start winding down. And my question will be around institutional or school support. Like you said, teachers have to strive for excellence, but at times getting institutional commitment or leadership commitment might not come easy. At times takes longer than planned. What advice do you have for teachers in that regard to ensure that they are able to strive for excellence and while at it, of course, win the commitment and heart and the understanding? At times it's a lack of understanding of what we're trying to implement from leadership, but then any thought along those lines so that teachers can, while striving for excellence, also understand how to navigate those lines?
Yes, thank you very much. In as much as we need to engage the policy makers and policy developers to include some of these things we're trying to do in our educational system. However, there's no guarantee that in as much as you try, you will get results. So personally, what I've resolved to do is to be self-motivated. There's this slogan of mine: I'm competing with nobody, I'm only competing with myself. And my competition is, I want to be a better person on a daily basis. I want to improve on my skills. It's more about me. It's more about me. So if I made up my mind, I want to be a better teacher, influencing and then affecting my students positively using technology, I go all the way. Even if I didn't get the support of my establishment or my institutions, I go ahead and pursue my goals. Of course, it's not easy. It might be difficult, but in the midst of all difficulty, if we make up our mind we want to forge ahead, we will definitely forge ahead, and then we keep doing what we know how to do best. I believe with time, the policy holder might see senses in what we are doing, and then they will embrace it. But as much as we don't have control over the policy decisions, we should not hang our trumpet and say we are not going to do what we know how to do best. Rather, let's keep doing it. Let's keep doing it. I had some personal experience whereby I proposed some of these things to some institutions, and they said, no way. That was during COVID. I proposed it. This thing is working. People kept on asking questions why it's not going to be possible, and they didn't allow it to work. But I didn't stop at using it personally. Thank God, PhET considered me as a PhET fellow. That's when I was able to make noise about it again. This thing I've been telling you guys about since. I'm now a fellow of this same project. Can we also project it further? And people see more senses in it. But that doesn't mean it has also been fully embraced. So we shouldn't just be discouraged. We should keep doing it and keep doing what we know how to do. And I believe that we'll get positive results. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Would like to appreciate and thank you for making out time and sharing your experience in, of course, implementing, but also teaching math and of in school, considering the numbers you teach. Thank you for your insight. We found that very, of course, very useful. And of course, you can see that from all the feedbacks and comments.
Thank you.
On behalf of everyone present today and the PhET Interactive Simulation Project, we'd like to thank you for making our time and sharing today. And we'd also like to thank everyone who have made time out to join us today. We look forward to having you again in August. We have yet another interesting speaker lined up. And don't forget, if you have questions between now and then, feel free to connect directly if you are in any of the WhatsApp group that we belong to. or just use the community on Facebook, and we'll be happy to answer the questions you might have or point you in the right way as required. So thank you for making our time today, and we've come to the end of today's session, and we look forward to having you next month. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.